15 seconds. Good evening and welcome to the Orange County School Board's regularly scheduled meeting this Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're joining us in person. We have a number of people in the chambers, and it's wonderful to see you here with us present. We thank you for adhering to our mask policy. And for those of you who are tuning in through live streaming, we welcome you as well. I am excited that we have 100% of our board members present in the chambers tonight. And so we won't need a roll call vote. Let the record show that we are all present and accounted for. Before we begin our meeting with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, I want to call on Member Castor Dental to share with us some tragic news and to ask her to lead us in both. Member Castor Dental?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take this moment to honor a teacher who taught dance kinesiology and somatics for the past 30 years at Edgewater High School, Mrs. Donna Davis, who passed away November 21st after a battle with cancer. Mrs. Davis was universally loved by the students at Edgewater High School, no matter who they were, how they performed in other classes, their discipline history, or what part of town they lived in. She was revered in every neighborhood, apartment complex, restaurant, and by every teammate and colleague, as Member Felder, who taught with her at Edgewater, I'm sure can attest. She frequently held yoga sessions for teachers and staff after school, and they were well attended because of the amazing admiration Donna's colleagues had for her. This year, she took her treatments on Fridays so she could use the 48 hours of the weekend to endure the after effects of treatment and be present for her students Mondays through Thursdays. She represented everything safe and nurturing in the teaching profession. Last Friday, Edgewater honored Donna Davis with a moment of silence at Edgewater's football game, and head coach Cameron Duke took the football team through a socially distanced receiving line for Mrs. Davis's family during halftime to pay their respects. Donna's spirit and belief in all children has been a model for all teachers that have come through Edgewater High School. Her understated yet powerful impact has left an indelible mark on generations of students. And on behalf of the Orange County School Board, we appreciate Mrs. Davis's dedication to the profession, her school, and her students. And she will be greatly missed. So will you please stand, bow your heads for a moment of silence.
Let me also call on Member Felder, her colleague, Donna's colleague, to say a few words.
Thank you, Chairman. I did want to say a little something about Donna Davis. Donna was my friend, and we often planned to travel. In fact, before COVID hit us so bad, we were going to South Africa together. And she would, when I would come, she'd always try to have me come to her yoga classes, but obviously, you see, I didn't go like I needed to go. But, I'm laughing, but I'm going to miss her. And Donna never wanted you to know how sick she was. She never wanted you to know. And so she is going to be sorely missed, not only by the children, but colleagues as well. I'm going to miss Donna Davis. I am. So thank you for giving me that moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Felder. Thank you, Member Castor-Dental. All right, we have an employee that we're recognizing tonight. We have the honor of recognizing one of our very own for his heroism. His actions saved the life of a student at Magnolia school. These actions occurred last school year, just before the pandemic started, which delayed this well-deserved recognition. But we could not let any more time pass to thank this individual for his heroism. I'd like to have his supervisor and principal come to the podium to tell us a little bit more about Raul Barrios, one of our security officers with District Police. Chief, you're fine there.
Chair, board members, Dr. Jenkins. Tonight we have a special presentation that we'd like to give a certificate of excellence to Raul Barrios, one of our security officers, works for our team. I've asked Norman Enville, his commander, to read the citation, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Security Officer Raul Barrios is a security officer assigned to Magnolia School. The administrative staff speaks highly of Officer Barrios' daily performance, and they say that he always goes above and beyond to assist staff, students, and parents. Officer Barrios works directly with the students all day long, knows them all by name, and knows all of their special needs. His exceptional attention to detail was especially critical on February 21st, 2020, while working inside the cafeteria. During lunch duty, as Officer Barrios walked around greeting students, he became aware that one of the students had began to choke on his lunch. Realizing that there was only minutes to spare before the student was in crisis, Officer Barrios took immediate action by performing the Heimlich maneuver on the student until the student's airway was cleared. Afterwards, Officer Barrios stayed with the student and assisted him while cleaning him up so that he could rejoin his classmates. Officer Barrios' quick thinking and willingness to take immediate action saved this student's life. Officer Barrios' dedication to the students was important on this chosen day because he knew the young man that was choking had problems with swallowing. This very simple but complex fact about the student was very important. Officer Barrios knew this information because it is important to him to truly understand the special needs of each one of the students. Knowing this information allowed Officer Barrios to recognize and react quickly to assist the student in distress, which saved the student's life. According to Principal Green, Officer Barrios proved himself once again to be deserving of the term hero. The passion and dedication that Officer Barrios brings to work with him each day inspires us all, and for that we are grateful to have him as part of the Magnolia team. The student's mother acknowledged the courageous and immediate action of Officer Barrios in a Facebook post in which she wrote, "Kudos to Raul Barrios. Your quick response probably saved our boy. You're the best."
The principal for Magnolia is here also, LaTanya Green. Would you like to say a few words, LaTanya?
Principal Green, wonderful to have you with us as well.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. We are honored to have Raul as a part of our Magnolia team and our family. He comes to work every day for the sole purpose of taking care of my team, my staff, and our students. So it didn't surprise me when he was in the right place at the right time and was quick to jump into action to save the life of one of our students. So we are honored to have him, and we believe that he's truly deserving of this recognition and this award today.
And by the way, he didn't know he was receiving this tonight. We just told him, come on up here with us, so it's a bit of a surprise. No?
Officer Barrios, we're awfully proud of you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. And let me also just take a minute to thank Commander Enville and Principal Green for being here as well and sharing the details with us. I know it means a lot to him and it means a lot to us. And if I can ask if Commander Enville would stay with us for just a moment, because as we were preparing for this recognition, it came to our attention that you're to be commended for your heroic actions as well. Earlier this year, in September, you ran to the aid of a victim in a car crash. The vehicle was actually submerged in 6 feet of murky water off State Road 417 near Lake Nona after swerving off the road. While over 50 people ran to the scene, you were one of a couple of Good Samaritans that went into the water immediately to save passengers. With zero visibility in the water, you were able to assist the victim, who was able to regain consciousness because of your heroic actions. Police and rescue personnel arrived quickly afterwards, but if it had not been for you and other brave volunteers, it is unlikely he would have survived. Last Thursday, the City of Orlando Police Department gave you the Good Citizenship Award in a ceremony for your actions. Your wife and your children were in attendance. I know this because I heard from his wife about it. She apologized for the fact that she wouldn't be on duty that day. She was called to a higher calling that day. For those of you who do not know, Officer Enville's wife is our general counsel, Miss Amy Enville. So we are enormously proud of you, and we want to thank you for your heroism as well, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We also want to recognize your very good taste in picking your spouse.
I second that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay, we have another special guest in the audience that we want to recognize for his service to the Foundation for Orange County Public Schools. And I'm going to turn the podium over to our Vice Chair, Pam Gould. Member Gould?
It is my absolute honor and pleasure, and I'm sorry to have my back to you, Eddie, but to honor Eddie Saviniera for years and years of not only service, but leadership and a huge impact. And in this, I want to share some statistics that the foundation's staff put together for me, because I didn't want to miss anything. Eddie joined the foundation board in 2009 and gave 11 years of steadfast service. He's represented the CFE Credit Union, and including through the transformation of their new name with the Additions Financial. But he didn't do it because of the credit union. He did it for the love of our students and the love of public school. I know that Eddie has a family that is in our public school system, because we often talk about that, and he is very proud of the education they're getting. He has been a loyal donor since 2011. He's served at least twice as foundation board chair. I knew you were crazy. Including during our collaborative efforts to create the first strategic plan, which was the very first time that we had a true global philanthropic direction. You may want to remember that we had the PSP, and it was really kind of a guiding and the initial step towards trying to make sure that everything the foundation did was in alignment with the priorities that the school board set with the leadership of the district. And that was a huge feat because they had never had anything like that before. So it was a wonderful foundational document and guiding source. He was a big part of the collaborative effort to really align the foundation even further with the district, and sought resources from 8 major district-wide initiatives that really move the needle for students. He served on the PSP committee from 2012 until our present day, where we are fully merged, and has continued in a leadership role over all that time. Eddie has been a key leader in the 2016 transition, as I said, but I really want to get to the impact that it has had. I'm going to talk about numbers, but each one of these numbers represents the success that a student may have had and has had that may not have been there had there not been this kind of philanthropic commitment from our community via this conduit of great leadership. The year before Eddie joined the board, the foundation had $602,000 in revenue and an operating deficit of $391,493. For 2018-19, the year before COVID hit, the foundation had $2.75 million in revenue and an operating surplus of $443,119. I am going to add, there's a couple other members of a very important leadership team in our presence here, and that is the treasurer, Alan Fideo, and Tom Bartho, who's our current chair. And they have been on this team and really have been great partners with Eddie in this, and they're here to help honor him tonight as well. But that's not all. In 2019-2020, with COVID, the foundation to date has revenues, to date has revenues of $2,160,000 in operating and a surplus of $77,000. Eddie was part of the effort to start the investment funds for the foundation. And the reason investment funds are so important is because in a time like this, that means we can sustain the revenues to support programs like Reading Ready and the teacher grants and all of those things that the foundation does in order to keep those programs going even in a time of crisis. But those numbers continue to grow each year. Eddie, your service has been exemplary, and I cannot thank you enough as a board member and a school board member for your efforts and work. And at this time, I'd like to ask Tom to share in the celebration.
All right. Thank you, Pam.
Uh-oh, hang on, I think we have a mic problem.
Okay.
Oh, that sounds better.
Yep, you're on.
All right, we're back live. All right, thank you, Pam. And I just wanted to add my thanks and congratulations to Eddie for his dedicated service to the Foundation for Orange County Public Schools. I joined the foundation 6 years ago, and Eddie quickly welcomed me to the foundation, introduced me to the fellow members, and quickly got me involved in various activities and committees. Eddie is the consummate gentleman in the room and always takes care of us. Eddie leads by example and sets the bar really high for all of us. So this year, I do get to follow in his footsteps as chairman of the foundation, and as Pam already indicated, he's set some high standards for us. And I'm very grateful and thankful for Eddie, and I congratulate him on his service and on his retirement. Well deserved. So thank you, Eddie.
Alan, you want to say?
Sure. Hi, I'm Alan Fidello. I've had the honor and distinction of serving with Eddie since he's been on the board. He's served in every capacity possible for the board. He's been there through transition when we've lost executive directors, had deficits. He's also been there for all the good times. I can't think of an event that Eddie has not shown up to that every board member has. He's just been a model as a board member. So I just want to be here tonight to say thank you.
Eddie, I hope you're not going far, and I hope you continue to share your talent with Orange County Public Schools. And you have been, I've witnessed you in meetings, and you've been a guiding star and a great mentor, especially to new board members as they have come on and sharing your wisdom. And you know, it's not easy supporting such a large system as OCPS and being the speedboat that really needs to help us pivot when we need to pivot, and you've done an exemplary job. I don't know if you would like to say something? We would welcome that.
Thank you, Member Gould.
I do want to say thank you to the board. This has been a great ride for me. And I had a couple of guys, and Debbie, we did this together. We did a lot of things together. We had some late nights, you know, but we stayed the course and we got it done. And that's the part that I always enjoyed, when we finished one more thing and it was, you know, the success, and it helped the children of Orange County Public Schools. And that was what we wanted to do, help them to become great. And we had a great leader. Barbara has done a great job since I first met her. I think when she got here, it was awesome. So, and we've been able to work together and have some good times. So thank you very much. And hopefully, maybe down the road, you know, right now, my wife and I, we want to do some things that we haven't had the chance to do while I've been working and my wife has been retired. So, but you never know, and I can be called upon for any type of, you know, if somebody needs some type of information or if any help, I'll be glad to help. And that's it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Luckily, WebEx and Zoom go wherever you go.
Eddie, thank you so
So-
much. I am
Thank you.
reasonably confident that after you and your wife have had some time to travel and do whatever people do when they retire, you'll do like most people I know and get bored. And just want you to know there'll always be a seat and a place here for you. You know, I can't get over the quality of people like you that serve on the foundation board. Just, you know, out of the goodness of your heart and because you're passionate about our children and about the value of public education. So I want to take a moment, just if there's anybody else in the room that's on the foundation board or has served on the foundation board, just stand so that we can also thank you. That includes you, Debbie, Alan, Scott, thank you. Vice Chair, the numbers you rattled off, I just, you know, being kind of a numbers finance person and understanding what that translates to, it's pretty amazing. But we are a huge district, as you pointed out. And without the role of the foundation, our children would not have the opportunities they have. And it's not just our children, it's the opportunities we've had to do recognition ceremonies and to keep morale as high as we can keep it in an environment where the teaching profession isn't revered the way it frankly should be. So your role is, it's invaluable, it's priceless. We can't begin to describe the difference that you've made. And you do, and it's just amazing, again, to me, that we have so many people that are willing to do it. And so thank you, and God bless you all. And if there aren't any further comments from board members, we'll move on to the strategic plan, which I think Vice Chair mentioned just a minute ago, that started some years back with the help of the foundation. Eddie, thank you again. God bless. All right, Dr. Jenkins. Oh, no, I'm sorry. First, we have a proclamation. We're proclaiming January 2021 as National Mentoring Month in Orange County Public Schools. And I think everyone on this board understands, and I think everybody in the classroom understands the value of mentoring. So we will certainly honor that opportunity in January. But the next item we're going to take up is the strategic plan. And you all may remember about a month ago, right after the Council of Great City Schools conference, I had asked the superintendent if she would give us an update, because I watched so many incredible things or learned about so many incredible things going on around the nation. And I know sometimes that we don't often spend enough time recognizing the things that we're doing And so I was looking forward to this opportunity to hear from the superintendent in terms of all that we've been doing and all that we can do moving forward to address equity in Orange County Public Schools. Dr. Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we are certainly quite pleased with efforts that have been made. I will tell you up front, we have miles to go before we sleep. We are not at all implying that our gaps are attractive. They are still concerning and disturbing. I will tell you also that had we had an actual completion of last year, we were looking forward to some significant gains in those gaps. All of that went down the tubes with COVID-19. So it remains to be seen what our data will look like at the end of this year when we've had a COVID slide and some additional concerns for our disadvantaged population. But what I can assure the board of is that we will continue to work tirelessly to make sure all of our children are served and to see those gaps further narrowed. That being said, let us walk through the presentation. Susan Abbey's going to start us out, and then Todd Trimble will contribute as well.
Ms. Abbey?
Good evening, Chair Jacobs and school board members. I'm going to see if the presentation will flip over. I think they're controlling that. Thank you.
It appears help may be on its way. Mr. Howitt, you look like you might have an answer.
Wait. Let me close out and try again. Okay, I think we got it. All right, this presentation will highlight some of the work that is done to address equity in OCPS. Let's begin by looking at our data. This data shows where we were in 2015-16 and where we are now. The percentage of students in each subgroup scoring at or above level 3 on state standardized assessments is subtracted from the percentage of white students or other subgroup comparison groups like ESE to non-ESE, ELL to non-ELL, who score at or above level 3. For these state assessments, level 3 indicates satisfactory performance. For example, if you look at the ESE to non-ESE row, in 2015-16, 16% of ESE students scored at or above level 3 on ELA state standardized assessments, and 58% of non-ESE students scored at or above level 3. This yielded a 42 percentage point gap between the groups. In 2018-19, 20% of ESE students scored at or above level 3, and 60% of non-ESE students scored at or above level 3. This is a gap of 40 percentage points. The percent of ESE students scoring at or above level 3 increased by 4 percentage points between 2015-16 and 2018-19. The gap between ESE and non-ESE students decreased by 2 percentage points between these years. For the achievement gap in math, we will look at the ELL to non-ELL row. In 2015-16, 25% of ELL students scored at or above level 3 on math state standardized assessments, and 55% of non-ELL students scored at or above level 3. This yielded a 30 percentage point gap between the groups. In 2018-19, 34% of ELL students scored at or above level 3, and 59% of non-ELL students scored at or above level 3. This is a gap of 25 percentage points. The percent of ELL students scoring at or above level 3 increased by 9 percentage points between 2015-16 and 2018-19. The gap between ELL and non-ELL students decreased by 5 percentage points between these years. All subgroups on this slide are making progress to narrow the achievement gap in math. Next, let's take a look at our acceleration data for the black to white subgroups. In 2015-16, 29% of black students demonstrated success in a post-secondary preparation experience during high school enrollment, and 55% of white students demonstrated success. This yielded a 26 percentage point in acceleration data. In 2019-20, 55% of black students demonstrated success in a post-secondary experience during high school enrollment, and 71% of white students demonstrated success. This is a gap difference of 16 percentage points. The black subgroup increased the percent of students demonstrating success in a post-secondary preparation experience by 26 percentage points between 2015 and 2016. 2015-16 and 2019-20. The gap between black and white subgroups also decreased by 10 percentage points between these years. In 2018, the New Teacher Project, which is an organization who helps school systems achieve their goals for students, set out to answer the question, how can so many students graduate from high school unprepared to meet their goals for college and careers? The New Teacher Project partnered with 5 diverse school systems, observed nearly 1,000 lessons, reviewed 5,000 assignments, analyzed more than 20,000 student work samples, and collected nearly 30,000 student surveys. The results were published in a document titled The Opportunity Myth. Here are some of the key findings. Students spend most of their time in school without access to 4 key resources: grade-appropriate assignments, strong instruction, deep engagement, and teachers who hold high expectations. Students of color, those from low-income families, English language learners, and students with mild to moderate disabilities have even less access to these resources than their peers. Greater access to the 4 resources can and does improve student achievement, particularly for students who start the school year behind. This landmark study shined a spotlight on educational equity and achievement gaps across our nation. In the upcoming slides, we will share more information on how OCPS uses this data and research as a call to action for equity. OCPS is committed to a focus on student social and emotional well-being and equity through the OCPS 2025 strategic plan. SEL advances educational equity and excellence through authentic school, family, and community partnerships to establish learning environments and experiences that foster trusting, collaborative relationships, rigorous and meaningful curriculum and instruction, high expectations for student learning, and ongoing evaluation. SEL can help address various forms of inequity and empower young people and adults to co-create thriving schools and contribute to safe, healthy, and just communities. The CASTLE framework is the foundation of our district's work around social and emotional learning and equity. To ensure a common language for SEL is permeated throughout our district, schools across all learning communities plan for a climate and culture for social and emotional learning and equity through a distributive leadership model. Schools analyze their culture and climate using this progression and address opportunities for growth through the OCPS school and classroom SEL practices. Through distributed leadership, schools implement cycles of professional learning and monitor, measure, and modify their impact on culture and climate to ensure equity for all. A call to action for equity and inclusion is woven throughout the Castle 5 areas of competence. Displayed on the slide are the most overt connections to equity and inclusion in the framework. Additional connections are also reflected throughout the competencies. The Castle 5 can be taught and applied at various developmental stages from childhood to adulthood and across diverse cultural contexts to articulate what students know, should know, and be able to do for academic success, school and civic engagement, health and wellness, and fulfilling careers. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Trimble, who will continue to share how OCPS is addressing equity in our work.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. The Minority Achievement Office was developed during the 2013-2014 school year to ensure an equitable education for all. The programs and initiatives supported by this office are grounded by the Castle 5 areas of competence and directly correspond to the resources and needs mentioned in the opportunity myth. MAO currently supports 12 initiatives. Building upon research-based strategies, processes, and partnerships with universities, municipalities, and faith-based organizations, MAO maintains a laser-like focus on equity and access for all students. Not only are initiatives focused on supporting students academically, socially, and emotionally, MAO is also committed to increasing the capacity of teachers and school and leaders within OCPS to collaboratively work together, narrowing the achievement gap that plagues our nation, our state, and our schools. One of the key areas of focus for MAO is culturally responsive instruction. MAO supports this through two parallel professional learning opportunities: culturally responsive standards-based teaching and culturally responsive schools. This focus on culturally responsive instruction directly connects with our district's work of supporting equity through the lens of social and emotional learning, strong instruction, and grade-appropriate assignments. Culturally responsive instruction focuses on educators examining prejudices and biases, demonstrating cultural competence, and evaluating personal, interpersonal, and institutional impacts of an equitable education. Let's take a closer look at these two parallel professional learning opportunities. The Minority Achievement Office is in the process of training teachers and staff on the impact of implicit bias and how it influences the learning environment. The title of this professional learning opportunity is called Culturally Responsive Standards-Based Teaching. We refer to it as CRSBT. This training fosters an instructional mindset that includes respecting and incorporating students' cultures into instructional practices, scaffolding learning, and striving for all students to become independent learners who are proficient in standards-based content. To ensure this reaches every school, principals selected a CRSBT champion who is trained to deliver CRSBT professional development to the staff throughout the school year. The phases of training are progressive and they include, in phase 1, understanding the impact of implicit bias and microaggressions in the classroom, characteristics of culture and how it impacts student learning, and using brain-based strategies to support student achievement. In phase 2, examining culturally responsive conditions for learning that result in the productive struggle necessary to ensure equity for all students. And phase 3, understanding the power of a growth mindset and its impact on student achievement, incorporating culturally responsive teacher indicators into pedagogical practices, and incorporating culturally responsive teaching into the school improvement plan to develop a culturally responsive school. MAO offers culturally responsive schools training for executive leaders and school-based administrators. Through this initiative, leaders are empowered to develop culturally responsive schools through new knowledge, experiences, and reflection. The leaders review their school's achievement gap data to aid in identifying disparities and additional resources to support all students. As a result of this series of professional learning, a foundational action plan is developed to support narrowing the achievement gap and disproportionality at the school level. This slide illustrates some of the many initiatives across departments in Orange County Public Schools that support equity, social and emotional learning, and high expectations for students in an engaging learning environment. We've connected these initiatives to the CASEL areas of competence, and they are interpersonal, which includes self-management and self-awareness, interpersonal, which includes relationship skills and social awareness, and responsible decision-making. Let's take a look at the 9 areas highlighted in blue on this slide. Males of color. The goal of Males of Color is to identify best practices, track student academic data, and implement proven interventions to address disparities among high school minority male students. This initiative is in all 20 OCPS high schools, and approximately 7,400 students are monitored and supported through the Males of Color initiative. Gen Wow, or Generation Wow, exposes girls to the positive and the possible by creating opportunities that help build the future leaders of the world by connecting them to the leaders of today. Minority Leadership Scholars. This program empowers young minority males to make significant contributions in their communities and to build a post-secondary leadership pipeline for colleges and careers. This is achieved by increasing the participation of minority males in leadership development and community outreach projects. This initiative is in 11 high schools. During the 2019-2020 school year, 411 students participated. This year, 172 students are participating. The Acceleration Initiative for Reading and Math is offered to students in second through fifth grades. This initiative focuses on front-loading of critical concepts, direct instruction of associated vocabulary, and the dispelling of common misconceptions before the delivery of core instruction for Tier 2 students. This increases the likelihood that students will successfully access the core instruction when it is introduced into the classroom and prevent the need for future remediation. The goal is that each acceleration cohort is comprised of at least 60% males of color. Currently, 27 schools receive direct support with this initiative. 100% of our elementary schools are online to be trained in acceleration by the end of the month and can offer acceleration. Over 1,000 students in the 27 focus schools, which were selected by student achievement data, are directly supported by acceleration. My Brother's Keeper. The goal of My Brother's Keeper is to narrow the achievement gap by addressing 6 focus milestones outlined by President Barack Obama, resulting in increased student attendance, reduced disciplinary referrals, and providing students second chances. This is accomplished through mentoring to support student needs with becoming college and career ready. This initiative is in 197 of our traditional schools, with 35 of these schools being identified as focus schools. During the 2019-2020 school year, 1,031 mentors signed up. At the 35 focus schools, 644 students were matched with a mentor. This year, 359 mentors are in place to support students through My Brother's Keeper. Latinos in Action, Latinos in Action. We refer to it as LIA, empowers Latino and other youth to lead and strengthen their communities through college and career readiness. LIA was implemented to meet the needs of the district's diverse population. It also helps narrow the achievement gap by helping improve students' academic performance and college readiness as they engage in leadership activities and service activities in the community. This initiative is in 24 middle and high schools. During the 2019-2020 school year, 799 students were enrolled in the LIA elective course. This year, 816 students are enrolled. Because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, some of these numbers are lower than in years past. The district is actively researching and implementing strategies to increase the number of students supported by these initiatives through our varied instructional delivery models. Next is equitable instruction. Equitable instruction is supported throughout our schools through a variety of strategies that help to meet students' academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs in an engaging environment that encourages collaboration with community stakeholders. Schools also provide students a variety of tutoring opportunities before school, after school, and on Saturday to support closing the achievement gap. For students who are meeting and exceeding grade level expectations, opportunities are offered for accelerated coursework such as advanced placement and international baccalaureate programs, and through the talent identification program we refer to as Orange Tip SAT testing. OCPS uses the multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, process to ensure that all students receive an equitable education by differentiating instruction and supports to meet the needs of the learner. OCPS provides access to multiple intervention programs that are used to provide a responsive learning experience. Inclusive practices. We continue to strive to integrate inclusive practices for our second language learners, struggling learners, and students with disabilities by expanding our resources and providing professional development and training to meet the needs of the diverse learner within the general education setting. Social Emotional Learning Leadership, or SELL. It's another way OCPS supports equity through our district-wide structure of professional learning that focuses on social and emotional learning and leadership. Through this professional learning, teams of teachers and administrators from schools learn to advance a culture of continuous improvement through adult and student social and emotional learning. Through the distributive leadership model used in SELL, teachers are given tools to embed equity into the classroom. I'll turn it back over to Miss Abby for some additional information.
So our work with equity will only continue to be deepened and enhanced. It is more important now than ever that we're assessing the impact of our district's work on equity. To ensure our impact, we will be tracking the measures on the screen, narrowing the achievement gap through student achievement data, qualitative feedback and perception data through Panorama student and staff survey, and teacher instructional practice and leadership practice data for strategies that directly correlate to equity. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Superintendent Jenkins.
Thank you, Ms. Abby and Mr. Trimble. Certainly, we are pleased with the programs that we have in place. We are concerned at some of the struggle being experienced now due to the pandemic and large numbers of students who may be doing their launch ed at home instruction where we cannot actually lay eyes on them and make sure they are experiencing sufficient success. We have a deadline of tomorrow for parents to let us know if those students will be returning. Schools are reaching out individually to schools where we know, to students and families where we know there is a struggle for that child's academic or emotional success. In the meantime, we understand every parent has a choice, that many of our families who may have some children struggling academically are also families who are underserved in the healthcare system. And we understand if the household is multi-generational, they have reason to be concerned about children returning to the school setting because they may then expose an elderly person in the home. And so our commitment is to do everything in our power to help them be successful regardless of the modality they choose for their instruction. And so Dr. Vasquez and her team, Dr. Schuler and Teaching and Learning have been looking very aggressively at online tutoring for some of our children, Saturday school, after school tutoring, even in person if they will come. In our high schools, more specifically, trying to create some small cohorts for students who may be struggling and in danger of graduating. Suffice it to say, where we were concerned previously about gaps and trying to narrow them, we are doubly concerned now that we are able to serve the needs of our students who have the greatest needs academically. We will keep the board posted, in fact, regarding student achievement as we get new data in over the next few weeks. We will keep the board updated. I will say again, we are committed. I remember in 2014 when we won the Broad Prize, it was because we stood out nationally for not only increasing all of our student achievement, but for narrowing our achievement gaps. And then a few things happened that changed our course, moved the goalposts, standards changed, the test changed, so forth. It's to be expected. We have to adjust with that. I will submit to you also in the coming months, we will be changing our standards again because Florida's commissioner will be instituting the best standards. And so our teachers will go through training and preparation for those standards, and then our testing will once again shift for our students. None of that really matters. Whatever the test, whatever the requirements are, we have to make sure not only that all of our students are engaging and achieving, but that we are super accelerating those students in underserved populations in order to narrow achievement gaps. That is our commitment, that is our goal, and we will continue to forge that pathway. Happy to answer any questions board members might have and hear your discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. I just realized I think we have a problem with queuing because I have Member Lopez queued up, but I think it's probably Member Gallo sitting in the seat Member Lopez would normally be. So, Member Gallo, were you wishing to be recognized? Yes. Okay, and so let me, because I also have Member Covert seeking to be recognized, but you're down there. So, pardon me? So let's, you have Covert. Thank you, which isn't where, okay, thank you all. So give me just a minute to make sure I know who's on first. And you have Member Gould. Okay. I know this makes no sense to anybody who's tuned in. It's kind of like a case of musical chairs. So we'll begin, Member Gallo, followed by myself. I'm the only one, I think, who is me. And then Kester Dental. And then, and you are you. You're still you. And Member Felder. Okay. All right. That's the order we have right this minute. All right. So let's begin with Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple questions, but first I have a few comments. I'm so excited that as a board and as a district, we're placing so much emphasis on social emotional learning. especially now in the time of COVID when we really have kids struggling with mental health. Suicides are on the rise, domestic violence is on the rise. It's now needed more than ever. And so I'm very proud of this board who made sure that it was a component of our strategic plan. So I'm very thankful for that. I do have a few questions. First off, on this, and I just need someone to explain this to me because this always kind of bothers me. On the first slide, when we were looking at achievement gaps, and the comment was made that we've raised achievement gaps in all of these categories, but if you look at free and reduced lunch to non-free and reduced lunch, we went from 74 for non-free and reduced lunch to 69, from 15 to 16 to 69 in 18-19. So when you lower one, even though the other one's raising, how are we really lowering achievement gap when we're just bringing the top down? We're not bringing both up, but we brought the top down and we brought the bottom up a little bit, and we're calling that a decrease in achievement gap.
So, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, Dr.
So
Jenkins.
regardless, your data still has to measure the actual gap.
Uh-huh.
And so you can't discount a gap. The numbers actually speak for themselves. The gaps measured are between one group and the other. And so it is still the actual gap that has narrowed. You can't discount it because of the overall number.
Okay, thank you. Chair, do we have a reason for why on our non-free and reduced students in math went from 74 to 16, or to 69, excuse me, from 15 to 18-19?
No, you
Dr.
couldn't.
Jenkins.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Yeah, so you couldn't speak to that in a nutshell. You
Okay.
can't describe why there is a difference.
Okay. And then I just had a question about the social emotional learning, like in the secondary level. How do we implement that for the students? Does it come in the form of instruction? How do we reach those students that may need that social emotional learning in the form of curriculum or instruction in our secondary level?
So we have various curriculums that we use, and we can supply that list of resources for you if you'd like.
Is it something that we do like daily, weekly? Is there a certain amount of time each week that we instruct the children, the students?
It's embedded in the curriculum. Dr. Schuler?
Good evening, board members. Yes, that is correct. It is embedded in the curriculum. Teachers at the secondary level have that autonomy to integrate it throughout their curriculum, but we do provide training through a distributive leadership process to all of our principals, our administrators, and then ultimately it filters, where our hope is that it filters down into the classroom. But yes, it is integrated into the curriculum and it is not taught in isolation.
That's wonderful. That's great news. That's awesome. And then I just have one last question. I love that this is involved, that social emotional learning is a component of the SIP plans, the school improvement plans. On the CRSPT training, how do we administer training to, I guess it's a train the trainer type model. So how do we introduce that to or choose, I guess it's by voluntary for the staff, and then how do they train other teachers? Is it interactive? Is it like via Zoom? What does that look like?
Yes.
It's really left up to the school.
Yeah. I'll step aside.
Thank you. Yeah, it's left up to the school. In some schools, they're doing it when they can face-to-face. In other schools, they're doing it via the big blue button or Microsoft Teams. So however they can make it convenient for the teachers in that aspect. So, and that training has already began.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for all that you guys have done, the staff and everybody for social emotional learning and implementing this. This is just makes me happy. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Gallo. I want to start by thanking Dr. Jenkins and the team for the presentation and for the years that you all have been working on this very challenging issue. And as Dr. Jenkins pointed out, this is a nationwide problem. That the district has put a lot of focus from the beginning of your term and a continued focus, and this year has compounded these challenges, as we know now that a disproportionate number of our students who are already struggling are not returned to the classroom for the reasons that you pointed out. So I think we do have to understand and brace ourselves for what those numbers look like. But I've got some questions about the actual culture in our classrooms and not so much on the numbers we're seeing. But I think I'm a strong believer that if you can change the culture in the classroom, the data and the competencies will follow. And so one question I have, we require all of our SROs that are in our schools to have implicit bias training before I believe all of them are trained. And I don't think that we require the same of our educators. And so in terms of what professional development is required and who determines that? Is that a state determination of what professional development is required? Or is that something that the board can direct? That we believe, for instance, social emotional learning, we felt that that was extremely important. I personally think that the whole board would agree that implicit bias training is extremely important, but I'm not sure that all of our teachers are receiving that training. But Dr. Schuler, thank you for stepping up.
There are some trainings that are highly recommended by our Florida Department of Education, but for the most part, professional development is left up to the individual school districts in terms of their need and their individual needs across the various school districts in Florida.
Do we have statistics on what % of our teachers have chosen to take the implicit bias training?
Yes, and we can get that to you
Okay.
at a later date. We
Okay,
do have
thanks.
that information.
Okay, I think that would be helpful. And then to the extent that, I don't know what I have an idea. I have an idea the number's going to disappoint me, but I could be wrong. If it's not where we think it should be, is that something, I'm assuming you're going to tell me that's a labor negotiation issue probably, Dr. Jenkins?
So principals actually are able to coordinate some of the professional development at their school. If it's something that's going to be above and beyond in hours or take up additional, typically planning time, then that would be a labor relations issue of some means of compensating for either the time or financially.
Okay, all right, thank you. Those are my questions. Let me go to Member Castor-Dental.
Thank you. And I can, well, as a former teacher, there are many that would voluntarily take that kind of training and not ask for any other additional compensation. And it's just part of their professional learning. I know that if you do get the number of teachers who have gotten the training and it's low, it's because there are so many things that we train teachers in, and it's kind of been rolling out. You take a small group and train them at a time. But I think it's important that all of our employees get that, as well as the board. I'd be interested to know what that process looks like. I've been engaged recently with reading some books on this topic, biased, and listening to some TED Talks about this, and it really is it's vital to understand what we're asking our employees to do and what we're looking to change in the district. And I agree, we need to set the standard and be the example before we expect our children to learn differently and to close these gaps. I mean, there's something that's going on that is not always visible to everybody, and this will really help. I noticed that in the discussion or the presentation, and thank you for all that information, that there were culturally responsive training and professional learning offered to the schools. Is it something that we can expect and request that all the administrators go through and develop a plan? I didn't know if they all did that or if it was just a small group that did that already.
So I have the ability to require it of all of our administrators. We have not made it mandatory for every teacher at the school, but under my direction, every administrator can be required and has been required.
Okay. Also, the FSA test, has it gone through any kind of cultural bias vetting? Or do we just assume that it represents the experience of all kids?
According to the Department of Education, it has gone through that type of vetting.
Do you know of any organization that does that kind of evaluation?
I can't tell you who they used actually, but I'm sure there's someone.
I wonder if that's a research project that someone else can do, because it could help explain some of the differences here as well, having a biased test, and that's pretty common to have in our measurement and assessments. I know that I'm not asking that we do it, I just didn't know if it has been done. And an additional resource we have in Orange County is Valencia's Peace and Justice Institute, which does phenomenal work on creating systemic change, personal change, and they have reached out to me and us and offered their services to help have those conversations about how we can overcome any biases that are in ourselves and in our system. So I recommend reaching out to them, and I can help make those introductions if you don't already have them.
Yes.
They're great. Another thing, I know Member Gallo asked about the materials for SEL in the upper grades. And I just want to ask the same question about the primary grades and middle school even, about ready access of the materials. I know some of them are online, and some of them are integrated in some of the lesson plans that are given. But I know some teachers and guidance counselors who have shared that they do not really have curriculum materials for SEL that they can integrate throughout the day, or that they're truly trained in and can outside like a morning meeting. They want more training and more information, and I don't know if we have kits for every teacher, because I know sometimes when we have teachers share a kit, neither one uses the resources. So if there's something that we can do to put more information and training in the actual hands of more teachers.
So currently our elementary schools and our middle schools have Sanford Harmony, and many are using Second Step as well. We are offering training and professional development this year on the resources that we have available to help implement social emotional learning in the curriculum. That's something new that we're doing this year. But we do have training that's available to teachers and administrators regarding the resources that we do have out there. We don't mandate that teachers use a particular resource, but we have resources available for them. Also, I do want to make a correction. The mental health first aid course, that is a mandatory course at the Florida Department of Education. I want to use that as an example for professional development that teachers and staff must take, and we're in the process of having all of our teachers trained. So there are some things that are mandated by the Florida Department of Education, and I just wanted to give you an example of one.
Okay, a couple of more questions real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that the resources are not mandated which materials teachers use, but is it required that they do use something?
Yes, we ask that they use the materials as a resource for the integration, but we also provide professional development and training on SEL practices as well, integrated into the curriculum. So no, we do not make it mandatory, saying that you must use Second Step or you must use Sanford Harmony, but it is out there and available for teachers to utilize.
Okay, and then my final question is about screening. So the Sanford Harmony or Second Step, whatever that curriculum is, kind of your tier 1 that we offer. And when I've inquired about whether kids get a tier 2 or a tier 3, depending on their needs, I was told that we refer them to a mental health counselor. But is there a way that we could use a screening tool like DESA for all kids in a grade or something? I see Mary has raised her hand.
Yes.
Miss
What did she
Miss
say?
Bridges, unfortunately, we can't hear you.
Yes. Yes, we are using that in some schools, and our plan is to expand. We also are working with community agencies to help us develop something that we can use in all schools as well,
For screening?
for screening. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, that's all I have. I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Okay, let me ask real quickly, we're gonna go to Member Felder in a second. Can somebody tell me who has Castor Dental? Thank you, Member Byrd. Okay. Member Felder, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. First of all, let me commend you on the presentation regarding addressing equity in OCPS. I'm ringing. Why am I ringing? Oh. Fresh out of the classroom, I certainly did my best and utilized culturally responsive instruction. And I was oftentimes commended by my administration for being able to, not strategically, but creatively incorporate a culturally unbiased curriculum. Because I know from experience that when you teach children about their culture and they see how viable their history is, it makes them want to read. It makes them want to learn. I'm just going to share very briefly. During my tenure at Dr. Phillips High School, I remember I introduced African American literature as a 7th period course. That means after school is over and you stay another hour. There were 125 students that signed up for my course, and they allowed me to take 45. And so I had to separate it in first semester, second semester. And there were about 5 or 10 other students saying, I don't have to get a credit for it, let me just take it. My point is, I'm so proud of this district, being the 4th largest in the state, I'm gonna keep saying that, and the 8th largest in the nation. We cannot afford not to have a program put in place that deals with equity. And as you said, board member Karen, that before we can instruct and want it to be done with our teachers and our principals and so forth, we that are in leadership must also understand the importance of equity and why that is necessary. And I'll say this, we're still trying to deal and do it right with Board versus Topeka Board of Education. We still ain't got that right, not yet. And so I'm so excited that we are at least trying to have this conversation. And so this is my question, and it may be a question that have to be answered throughout the course of this year. But how do we ensure that teachers are responsible for this kind of cultural responsive instruction without delving into their right to creative instruction? Because teachers, from my perspective, teachers do well in teaching what they like and what they understand. And there may be things you want to teach, but you're not knowledgeable of. Just a very short example, I'm going to wrap it up. I was asked to teach 10th grade literature one year, and it dealt with world literature, and there was a section on the Holocaust. Well, I read about it, but I didn't really know a lot about it. So I decided to take a trip to Amsterdam so I could really go to Anne Frank's house, so I could really see all of this. So when I came back to teach, I could teach it with some conviction, with some real understanding of what I was wanting them to understand. And as an African American, I thought them to understand. And as an African American, I thought when I went to Africa, that was it. But when I saw what Anne Frank and her family went through, I felt some kind of way. There was a difference. So my point is this. If we're going to do this thing called education, and I think we're going to do it, and I think we're going to do a good job, we have to be honest in our approach and how we deal with curriculum. We can't mousy measy, we have to hit it head on and deal with it, because that's the only way, whatever the biases are, whatever the misunderstandings are, that is the only way it's going to be broken. We have to set the example. So I want to commend you on your work. I do have some concerns about this achievement gap, especially when I looked at black to white in math and reading from 41 to 74. And then I compare it to whites with all the way to like the gap is so high. And I know that we're doing the best that we can, but I guess we have to find ways in which we can do better. The COVID-19 had a lot to do with some things that we had probably planned to do and improve, but because of COVID, we had to deal with that, and my time is up. But you know how I feel, so thank you so much.
So
Sorry.
before we move on, Member Felder asked a question that I think felt like a follow-up to a question you asked that I was just going to follow up with. So let's see if we can get an answer to the issue of I think I'm going to get this as verbatim as I can. Member Felder asked, how do we ensure that teachers are using culturally responsive curriculum without interfering with their rights to creativity? Anyone want to take a shot at an answer to that?
So I think we have to make the case with teachers that such training is going to make their job easier, more meaningful, that it will make them more effective in the classroom. I do not imagine, nor would I insist on teachers giving up their creativity and some autonomy. You've heard the union speak on more than one occasion about teacher autonomy and not having that infringed upon. But I believe, because of what the data shows us, and that's why Todd Trimble mentioned to you the trainer approach. If you have an expert, if you have a champion for the cause that goes through the training that believes in it, then she or he can go back and impact their peers and encourage them to take part in the training. We can certainly approach the notion of, I believe we have some Wednesday that are set aside specifically for training. We can actually approach the notion that a particular topic will be mandated in all of our schools. My guess is we'll get better response and better participation by this champion venue where their own peers are encouraging them and saying, this is helpful, it's worked in my classroom, come and visit and observe some things that I'm doing in my classroom, and come to the training. That's what we're hopeful of, and we're just at the start of that after we piloted in a couple of schools. We think the peer training is going to be much more effective than mandating. If we go the mandating route, then we will need to have discussions with our union.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go then to Member Lopez? Yeah, Member Lopez, and then, okay, I'm getting there. Who's who?
Thank you for the great presentation. I really enjoy it and very helpful, not only for us, but for our community. I have 3 questions. And the first one is, are we providing culturally responsive training for all of our staff members, instructional and non-instructional?
Yes, it is available to all staff members. I'll let Mr. Yeah, yes, that is correct. It is available for all staff members,
But not mandatory as well?
but not mandatory.
Okay.
That is correct.
Because I also believe that it should be, something that everybody take. I think that all of our staff members, instructional and non-instructional, are interacting with our students, and we are a very diverse district, very proud, diverse district. We are 43% Hispanic, 26 white, and 25 black. I think that we should have that type of training because every interaction is important for our students. And impacting, it's going to impact them. Imagine when you take the bus and the driver doesn't understand maybe the way you talk, or maybe the way you look, or maybe the way you speak. I think that we should make this, I believe in this. I don't know how it works at this point. Maybe something that the CTA needs to do it, or maybe us. Can I have more feedback on that? How can we advocate for that type of training for our staff members?
So I think it would be through our chief negotiator having those conversations rather than here at the board table.
Thank you. The second question is, how can we provide mentorship programs for the students who continue to be in Launch Ed?
So currently, we do with our mentors, some of them are mentoring children who are in Launch Ed. So we have students being mentored in our face-to-face instructional model and Launch Ed and OCVS. So we do have mentors that are willing to mentor our students regardless of the instructional model that their parent has selected for them.
And they can contact the minority office if we have parents with that type of question.
Absolutely, yes, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And the last question is, how does the district evaluate if the school is culturally responsive or not?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Part of the CRSBT training that's taking place now, there's 3 phases of that. The third phase will come with like a rubric where there's like look-fors and things like that that teachers can be mindful of. You know, are these things occurring? If they are, it's a good indication that there is a cultural responsiveness going on in those schools, and I can share with you what some of those might look like.
Perfect.
Like the teacher building authentic relationships with students in the classroom, particularly those that are struggling in that classroom. When that teacher highlights to students how a topic might relate to their culture or their interest. Those are just some examples of what a culturally responsive classroom, some of the things that could occur in a culturally responsive classroom.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Dr. Jenkins?
So,
Yes.
thank you, Madam Chair. Member Lopez, there's actually a metric where they can gauge how far the school has progressed. We'll share a copy with the board.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Lopez. Let's go to Member Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my fellow board members pretty much covered my questions. I agree with all of them that the work that's being done by this district, I think, is phenomenal. This whole presentation was so good. My question was, again, what my fellow board members had said, how can we make this more of a district-wide commitment than just offering professional development. I feel like we all have pretty much agreed that we all think this is really important, and I agree that, with what the chair said, that a culturally responsive classroom is going to, the learning's going to come after that happens, and after the social emotional learning is dealt with. We've talked about this many times, but if the student is struggling with mental health issues or other issues, they're not going to be learning. We know that as educators. So I'm thrilled to see all of these things being addressed, but I would also just like to put in my 2 cents that I agree that I think that this is fantastic, but I'd like to see it be a, district-wide all initiative. Absolutely. All employees, I agree with Member Lopez. All employees that interact with our children should be trained and should learn about this. And, I agree. I know that our teachers are completely overwhelmed, especially this year, and they have a lot of weight to carry, a lot of trainings, a lot to learn. I think having the champion at each school, like Dr. Jenkins said, that's a great idea. And also, maybe even if schools could just do small chunks at a time, when they have a faculty meeting, do a little 10-minute thing about culturally responsive, ideas and implicit bias, and just give them things in little chunks. I think sometimes helps in my experience as a teacher. And yep, that's it. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that Member Castor-Dental and Member Felder and even the chair asked this question. But are we monitoring? I know that the chair asked for data. Are we monitoring how many teachers are being trained to see what the numbers look like? Are we doing that by school level? Are the principals reporting back to the district so that we have an idea of how many teachers are using the culturally responsive and the social emotional learning?
Yes, part of what we'll ask that champion to do is report back to us the number of teachers on staff that participated in that training. So that's how we would monitor that.
Do we have any teachers that embed it in their lesson plans?
Oh, I'm sure we do, yes, I'm sure we do.
Yes? Karen's like, yes. And then I just wanted to comment on, I would be happy to take this as well. I think that this is important for all of us to be aware of it and to make sure that we're all doing our part to understand it. And I think, a lot of the things that we ask our teachers to do, I would be more than willing to do myself so that I have a better understanding of what they're doing in the classroom. And I do agree with Member Castor-Dental as well. I wonder if these gaps that we're looking at is truly a reflection of the learning that's happening, which I don't believe it is, or it's a reflection on the test that we're giving and the biases that might be embedded in the test. So that was a great point. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Vice Chair Gould.
Thank you. I think it's been said about the direct training and the progress we've made and how good those trainings are, but this is truly a culture, and I know we've been driving to really lift the culture to be one of inclusion and equity. But I think there's different ways to deliver training without even knowing that you're being trained sometimes. And maybe there are some personal benefit training. So it's not so much just about how you're delivering it to students, but how you're helping yourselves, how to reduce your own stress, how to, have crucial conversations, how to do those kind of self-improvement, so that it feels like it doesn't feel like it, that we are investing in our team's well-being as well as the students' well-being, because it's a whole ecosystem of that. And if you can set the culture right, which I think we have been on the path in spite of a lot of outside forces, and the superintendent's done a marvelous job over the years that I've been here, really introducing, books and Angela Duckworth and grit and resilience and the code of education and, decoding education, all of those things. But I think if we could do even some soft touch support things for our staffs, that then, it's that behavior you pay forward. It's that acknowledgement of, oh, I needed that and I didn't even know I needed that. So I think that we have to look at this not just from a direct delivery system. The second thing is, and we've done again, I compliment our team. We've done an excellent job partnering with our community. It can't just be within our walls. It has to be with all of our partners, whether it's our municipal partners and Parks and Rec and things like Kids Zone and the Boys and Girls Club. And it really has to be our entire fabric that is completely connected to this goal. Because if they build trust at school with someone and they lose that trust in a partner, we may lose that trust back at school. So I think it's that we have to really focus on those partnerships, lift them up, and continue to foster them and rely on them to help deliver this, because we can't all do it alone. This is truly a completely threaded network and net that catches kids and some of our adults that struggle too.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I think it's been an excellent conversation. Dr. Jenkins, I appreciate your perspective on, and as I think through this, if if we try to tell teachers they're going to have to take an implicit bias class or professional development course, they may not actually get anything from it. So the approach may not be an effective approach. I do think it would, moving forward, an update to the board so that we know how many teachers have, so we just have an idea of the magnitude. And I think getting that to each of the board members so that we have, Dr. Casterdental, excellent suggestion. I think I had asked for that at one point because I was like, I want to know what it is I'm talking about. I want to experience that. And then Member Gallo asked a question, to the extent that you can come back to us with data on how many schools are deemed culturally responsive and how we're monitoring that, just so we understand that a little bit better, that would be helpful. I think the one thing that I want to kind of close on is the gap is really important. Oh, I think if there's any way that we could look at, Dr. Casterdental, your suggestion about whether there's a bias in the testing, that would be helpful. But I also don't want to have blinders on. Even if there's a bias in the testing, I think I think we have a problem. And it's not our problem, it's a national problem. But that makes it our problem. So the other aspect of this that is really important to me, and I'm sure it is with the board, is that we are in an environment, we're talking so much about what's wrong with social injustice, what's wrong with our justice system. And we are raising the next generation of law enforcement officers in our classrooms, and we're raising the next generations of lawyers and judges in our classrooms right now. And that's why, to me, beyond the gap, if a student doesn't have the highest academic achievement, if they graduate from high school, if they can find a secondary level of education to employ and support themselves, they will still be okay. But the culture of our community can be great moving forward, or it can be awful. And I think a lot is determined by what's happening in the classroom. And we have so much power and influence over what's happening in the classroom if all of our teachers subscribe to that same belief that every child is inherently equal and capable, and we create that environment. It's just, we're, as you keep saying, Member Felder, 8th largest district in the nation, 4th largest district in the state. We're talking about the ability to change the future of a lot of people in a really positive and powerful way. And so, like I said, even more than the academics, I am passionate about doing the best that we can to motivate and for our teachers to want that, as opposed to telling our teachers they have to. So this conversation has been excellent for me. Thank you all. As I always do, I come and I walk in with one set of thoughts about how to do something, and I walk away with a broader and better perspective. So thank you. Member Felder? I think you might be recognized.
No, that's all.
Okay, that's fine. Then I think we are going to close out. It's a long strategic plan update, but very worthwhile and very important to the board, and I know to the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Jenkins, do we have any newly appointed administrators to recognize?
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have one. That is Kimberly Dawn Webb Jacobson, who was the program specialist in evaluation systems and now will be the assistant principal at Boone High School.
And is she with us tonight? No. Okay, thank you.
We don't invite them to actually come anymore.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Jenkins, adoption of the agenda. Do we have changes to the agenda? I know we do, but if you could announce them for the record.
We do, Madam Chair. Thank you. We have two changes moving to non-consent. That is item 401, request approval of the 2021 state and federal legislative platform. That will move to non-consent for board discussion and final approval. And then also moving to non-consent is item 501, that is our personnel agenda. We need to move that to non-consent because our newest board member, who has to be on leave, that item is on that agenda, so she will need to recuse herself from voting on it.
Thank you. The chair finds cause to amend the agenda as requested by the superintendent. Is there a motion to amend the agenda? Motion by Member Lopez. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you. Second by Member Felder to amend the agenda. I can do a voice vote, right? Can I? We haven't done this in forever. All in favor of the motion to amend the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Gosh, that's a whole lot easier.
Madam Chair,
yeah.
I neglected to mention those would move to items 1704 and
Oh, thank you.
1705.
Thank you. And so we now need to vote on a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
I
I'll move.
move.
Where did I hear that coming from? Member Gallo? Member Gallo made the motion. Is there a second? Member Felder, second.
All right.
And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and there's a little mentoring going on at the dais, and that's wonderful. Thank you. We have a number of speakers. I apologize to those who have been on the phone, I think, or no, perhaps not, maybe here in the chambers, waiting, but the issue we just took up was extremely important. We will take public comments on the consent agenda before we take action, and I have a speaker card for, and I am going to apologize ahead of time, I'm not going to get this name right. Amil Kumar? It's on item 901, the MOU for, is this in person or, this would not be by phone, right? Pardon me? In person. Okay, we have a speaker card, somebody in person. Is this the gentleman walking forward? Welcome, sir. If you could come to the mic over here, and thank you so much for joining us today. That's fine. Usually there. And sir, if you were outside of the room, you might not have heard. I'm struggling with your name, and I apologize. Could you
That's
help
okay.
me with your name and address for the record?
Sure, it's Anil Kumar.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And your address for the record?
It's 400 West Church Street, Orlando, Florida, 32801.
Thank you. And if you could go forward with your comments?
I'm sorry.
You could go forward with your comments?
Okay. I don't know if Superintendent Jenkins has already provided some commentary. I apologize, I was outside the office, the building.
Okay.
So this is the one with the video link to it. It is for Smart City. We can actually do this one just after the consent agenda. I apologize.
Okay, we'll take this up right after we vote on the consent agenda. My apologies. Thank you, sir. The other item, Eugene, staccato. Sir, you're on 1101. And you know, we're not always recognized with our mask on, but I was quite certain that was you. It's good to see you again.
Hi, Eugene Staccato, 331 Roswell Avenue, Orlando, 32803. And it's about the consent agenda 1101. I was asked by a friend to come down and also speak in approval of the Duke to improve for the solar effort that the school system is considering. And I think this is an important first step for the school system. I mean, I think many of us who have solar have benefited greatly, and I think the school system will benefit over time by potentially saving money. Maybe not so much with this agreement, but with the vision of potentially looking at your resources that you have, which is your rooftops, along with your facilities. Many of us have our power on our roofs. I know there's a reluctance about that, but we have a history, and Chair, you know about the Orange County Convention Center. We have a megawatt up there. It's 15 years up there now. And that roof is quite stable. There's some reluctance. I've heard that people don't like putting stuff on roofs. A 3 foot by 5 foot panel weighs 40 pounds. So it's not much weight we're talking about. So we potentially could save millions of dollars by making an incremental amount of money every year. That would be my hope, that where this leads to over the next couple of years. And also, this is, I've spoken to about about this, is I think there's an opportunity to also start thinking about maybe creating a master electrician within for the kids that don't want to go to college, but want to become, technical people who we need in the field of like electricians. Create a field where they can start studying, starting in the 9th grade, moving towards using the concentration on being an electrician as a business type activity. They teach math and all those sciences to that focus. But the senior project could be like an Eagle project, and it could be a solar project. It could be anything they want. But this is another opportunity. We can use a lot of interesting things that we have as a community to create this solar, not only from just a simple, agreement with Duke, but then carry forward. So I think it's a good first step, and I congratulate us. And many of us who have gone to solar know its benefits. So I'm looking forward that we.
Thank you, Mr. Staccato. Let me just give you an update. We had a recent update. We are moving forward, maybe a little more cautiously than you would prefer, with some pilot projects regarding solar in our schools. As you probably know, I'm not paying any bill at all right now, this month and last month, because of solar. So you have a lot of big fans on the board, including Vice Chair Gould, who's been an advocate for CTE programs in smart energy. And Vice Chair Gould, did you want to be recognized for a moment on that?
I did, since he brought it up. We already have a very strong electrical program that students can become masters. But the staff has been working on some potential partnerships with both CFX and, fingers crossed, maybe even Disney with their whole solar farm component, for training, for caring, but even beyond that, even some design work and things. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot going on in that within the school district.
There's a lot of interesting things, because when I retired from NASA 2 years ago now, but when I was out there in IT, I was the member who sat on the energy conservation. So we worked with FP&L to create the solar energy center out there, which we have initially 10 megawatts, which they gave us a megawatt, and that's now 2.5 megawatts for center use. But we just signed an agreement, and it's being built as we speak, and it's partially built now at 74.5 megawatts. So those things can happen and benefit both parties. So we can look at innovative ways to move forward to save money, save the environment. It's all good.
Yeah, you have a lot of support on the board.
Yeah.
We're moving at the speed we can move right now. Good to have you with
And I
us.
thank you for all
Thank
your
you.
support over the years.
Of course.
In your previous job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for all your support over the years, too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We have two members on the phone, or two individuals on the phone that want to speak to the item 1001 before we vote on the consent agenda. And this is the item pertaining to request approval of the revisions to the special programs and procedures document for the upcoming, for the 2018-2021 school years. And so I will recognize the first person on the phone. If you can identify if you can give your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Our first caller is Kyla Murphy.
Ms. Murphy, can you hear me?
Yes, this is Kyla Murphy. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, if you can speak just a little bit louder, that would help. And of course, for the record, we have to have your name and address.
Yes, my name is Kyla Murphy. My address is 2322 Pebble Court, Orlando, Florida, 32837. And I just wanted to say that I tried to access this document earlier today. I was trying to locate it, and I wasn't able to locate it on BoardDocs. So for me, that was concerning. But I'll go through some issues or questions that I have going through the language. The first question that I have is the update on the number of incidences for restraint. I'm unsure why the 2019-2020 school year, where it says 765 students incidents of restraint, and to note that it was a 9.5% decrease, when 4 months of that school year, we weren't in school session. So I wouldn't even count it as a decrease because it wasn't the full school year compared to the other years. The other thing that caught my eye is in the ESD category, autism spectrum disorder, 75.4% of restraints were students with autism. To me, that's a clear indication that some additional training needs to be made. Also, the CPI training, moving from every year to 2 years, that, again, without having clear data of seeing a significant decrease with 4 months being taken away, I think I would be pretty concerned regarding that, especially when I know there's staff that works with my children that are not CPI trained and have been employed by the district for many years. And I would like to know who monitors that. The other question I have regarding restraints is that the prone position, which is the most deadly restraint, way of restraining anyone, that is used 75.42% of the time when restraining. If we are going to decrease the training for CPI, but we have that much prone restraint within the district, that is alarming to me as a parent and as a mother of 2 children with autism. The other question I have, I see under new language, it says participation in the state and district assessment. There was a notation there that teachers use data collected throughout the year and priority standards and must maintain evidence in their files for at least 1 year on the student. I just want a clarification for that. That's new language, so is that something new that's going to be happening? Because many of times I've requested records for my children and I haven't seen any priority standards or documentation within school year's tasks in there. Also, the FSA participation. I know earlier there was a discussion of the number of students with disabilities increasing that have taken the FSA versus the FSAA. I would like to know how many of those ESE students were exceptionality was gifted, as well as how many of the students were moved to access points that year versus taking the FSA and were moved to FSAA. Sorry, I'm going so fast. There were so many different things that I had seen throughout this document and just
Time.
getting it to look at it now.
All right, Ms. Murphy,
The last,
the time is up. Did you say
Yeah.
you have one more issue?
yeah, there was just one more thing about at the bottom, the emergency language of a document that the district would review what services were able to be provided to the student versus what would be not during an emergency, in a letter that would go home to the parents, but there's no type of language in there that says what would happen to the services that this district deemed would not be able to be provided to the student during a state of an emergency.
All right,
And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Dr. Jenkins, I think we have a second caller on the line as well. Do you want to take the second caller? And I see that Mr. Gesundheit is in the chair to answer any questions. So let's take our second caller.
Our second caller is Luz Oquendo.
Ms. Aquendo, welcome. If you can give your name and address for the record, and then we're interested in your comments. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Luz Oquendo. My address is 10917 Tangora Street, 32825. And I'm also calling about the ESC policies and procedures. My concern is on part 2. So I just want to say access points is reserved for the most mentally challenged students, and it's supposed to be used only for the 1% of students with severe cognitive disabilities who cannot learn on grade level. So in a recent Florida lawsuit, the district can appropriately place students in access points, a program for children with severe cognitive disabilities, in an effort to protect school grades, as these students do not participate in state testing. This school year, I actually asked the ESC director for the number of students on access points, and I was told this information was not available. I am concerned about the transparency on students on access points. Based on the information presented on the SPNP, the district is over 1% for the participation rate is increasing. I am concerned about the progress monitoring as well. It was also mentioned using that it would be progress monitored using the curriculum resource ULS. However, students like my daughter that is in general education environment on access points, their teachers do not use this resource, and it is not an appropriate tool to progress monitor. So I'm really concerned that because this is one of the only tools that are used as a curriculum resource for students on access points, then all our kids that are on access points are all lumped together, and now we're only using this one curriculum resource for progress monitoring. Yet we have students in general that they use so many different options to progress monitor. Why are we only using this one? What research has been done to say what is the best way to progress monitor students that are on access points? I appreciate the ESC department has included progress monitoring because students on access points, based on my experience, are always left behind. If all really means all, then we need to do more.
All right, thank you.
I use my time.
Mr. Gesundheit? Dr. Gesundheit? Can you check and see, mic might not be turned on.
Is that?
No, it's sorry,
is?
it wasn't you, it's on.
Okay, thank you. I try to capture everything, but I'll go through the revisions just slightly so that I think I could cover everything that was asked
Okay, thank you.
about that. If
Thank
not,
you, sir.
they could reach me in an email and I could respond
All
to
right,
that.
thank you.
So the
But for
first
the
one I wanted
benefit
to
of the
touch.
board, since we're going to vote on it, we appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding the FSAA and the 1%, that is just recently required in order to, that's been set by the state. And what they were asking us was to look at that 1%. As a state, a lot of our directors were asking where did the 1% come from? And the response we got was they really don't know where the 1% came from. And the reality was that there is no district in the state of Florida that got that 1%. The majority of them, we hit 1.2 to 1.4. So the goal then is to keep on working on that in order to try to get to that. And as a ESE department, what we did for this year is add another layer in regards to our monitoring of it, where we will have our program specialists attend the meetings where FSAA is being requested as a possibility, and then look at if all the points are valid and if that information is accurate in order to move forward to allow FSAA as an assessment tool for that student. So we're hoping that that layer will help bring that number down. But at this point, like I said, no district has hit that 1%, I believe is what we were told by the chief at that point. The other one was restraints. We are aware that the restraints for the last year was only after March, and there were some dates missing, so we asked our team to kind of look at why, where would we be if we had the full year? And we might have been off a couple of percentage points, but still our goal was 1%, and we feel that we would have definitely hit beyond the mark of 1% in reducing our restraints. Now, one thing that's important to understand regarding restraints, especially with children with autism or intellectual disabilities, that the restraints also include self-injurious behavior. So you have students that may try to gouge their eye, may try to bite their hand, may try to hit themselves in the head. At those instances, it is our responsibility to keep safety, and what we do as a team is we would have to restrain, absolutely have to, because we cannot let them hurt themselves or cause any injury to themselves in regard to that. So that also includes that. And it also, it's important to also remember that at times we have students that are extremely challenging, and they may have a frequency of, let's say, hitting themselves 50 times a day. So you're going to have to restrain that student about 50 times in order to be able to stop that. And the goal of our team is, in essence, to look at those situations and look at how do we reduce those numbers? What can we do? What alternative behavior can we implement with that student in order to bring those numbers down? We monitor restraints monthly. Our behavior analysts will review those numbers monthly and look at, okay, do we have students that are really high? Do we have students that are not? Are numbers going higher in this school or not? And let's go find out why. So they're constantly doing that and working together to kind of look at those situations and try to make sure that they work with the schools in order to have a better approach in regards to how to reduce those numbers. The restraints honestly depend on the type of situation that the restraint is called for. As a department and as a district, we feel that it is the last resort. We're not going to do it for every situation. We try our verbal digressive techniques, and the idea is that a restraint is the last possible thing that we will do in order to stop and change behavior. But that does occur at times, and again, it depends on different situations. You may have students that may have a hard time being on task, and they need some type of behavior program with that. You wouldn't use any restraints. Or you look at a student that's 350 pounds that will attack, a teacher in a situation of crisis. And then we've had to have like at least 8 people have to help restrain them at that point. So each situation is really, really different. And it's important to put that in context because at times numbers of restraints may kind of throw you off and you think, why is it so many? But then you realize that maybe 50% of those restraints was a student who constantly and has really high frequency behaviors as well. Let me see. Some restraints, I believe. The CPI training. So CPI is the company. They recommend every 2 years to go ahead and recertify. During COVID, kind of bubbled up some issues for us, which was it was really difficult and pretty much impossible to provide training for recertification of our staff when we could only do it virtually. Because the company requires for there to be actual, hand-on-hand part of a test in order to pass the test and get recertified. So we found ourselves in a big pickle in that sense because we were like, how do we resolve that issue? That is a big item. So we figured that by going and with the recommendation of the company would give us more time to kind of work with it. Like currently what we're doing is we pretty much cut all the classes in half, and we've had to double the amount of trainings that we provided in order to be able to meet the demand of the CPI training. The other piece with that then is with the restraints themselves. The company is working with us significantly to try to do some of that pieces virtually and maybe do that whole training virtually. But at this point, no. And one of the things important to point out is in the SPNP, we're supposed to do kind of like the minimum requirements, but as a district, we can do beyond. And this is a situation where we went beyond, where we said, you know what, we want to certify our staff members every year and not every 2 years, despite that you recommended that as well. Okay. So you had CPI, the FSAA, I believe. I think I caught
All
the
right.
majority with that.
Thank you. Any question? Oh, boy. Member Lopez is really, Member Gallo. Member Gallo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you, I think one of the questions brought up was about the prone restraints.
Yes.
And the high percentage of prone restraints.
Yes.
And how dangerous it is to children with disabilities. Can you speak to that, please?
It is, again, it's not ideal. And again, what we focus on, what is the safest way, not only for the student, but also for the staff, because we want to make sure everybody's safe. It's not ideal, and I know that the state keeps, tries to work with each district to kind of see. It's a restraint that is acceptable. It's not acceptable, but it's one that we look at different types of restraints in order to work with them. One of the biggest things that we try to do is within the actual behavior program. So within the behavior program, what we try to do is try to decrease the amount of aggressiveness and then try to focus on alternative behavior. So by that I mean, I'll give you a good example. So sometimes the students hit their head because it brings an adrenaline rush. And that's why they do it. So immediately what an analyst will try to do is, what other way can we give them an adrenaline rush that'll take the place of him clocking himself, hitting himself in the head? So that's the biggest focus, but that we would need prone. Yes, we do in some instances. Like I told you, in those cases where it's a child that's 350 pounds, 250, in order to be safe, you don't want to use just 2 people or a restraint that can hold them down. I've literally seen people being picked up off of 1 foot, where that 1 foot of that student will actually flail that person. But I think that what we train our staff is basically least restrictive, focus on the safety of the student and the safety of the staff. And if prone restraint is called for, then that's what we would need to do. We're always open to different types of restraints or different types of methods. In fact, we're looking at something new that came out of Japan, Yukuru, and we're looking at what different methods can we use. But to answer your question, it depends on each and every single situation, and each one is different, and the focus of each situation is safety.
And a follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Do you know how we rank with other districts on the amount of restraints that we do in this district comparatively to other large districts?
I do not off the top of my head, but I could get you that information, absolutely.
Thank you. I think, I think when we do the workshop, we're all going to benefit because we don't know what we don't know. And and we did have one-on-ones, which we so appreciated with your staff.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. But you don't know what questions to ask then if you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
And so I think having that workshop will be beneficial because there's going to be a more in-depth
Absolutely
a
will.
review of policies and procedures come down the pike, right? You're going to be making even more changes than these preliminary
Yes,
ones.
actually, what's happening, so due to COVID, the state had to push back all the revisions. So currently, we're finishing up 1920, and in a couple of weeks, you'll see the 2021 revisions come up, and that's within a month or so. So that's what had happened. The state had to move all that and
So we'll
push
be doing a deep dive into all of this.
Sure, absolutely, and we could answer questions, and all our staff members will be there to be able to give you a deep dive.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Member Lopez. And for the board's benefit, when I who'd I, oh, I'm sorry. You're Lopez to me from now on. Oh, gosh, you don't know how my brain works with names. You couldn't be Lopez for a while. Thank you, Member Gallo. For the benefit of the board, when Dr. Jenkins and I go over the agenda before it becomes final, I was concerned about this because I know that all of us have a lot of questions and we're looking forward to the work session.
Sure.
But because, as Dr. Gesundheit just covered, we really do need to take action on this. But this isn't the final subject or the final say on this, and we will continue.
Right.
But I think that Member Gallo's questions are going to be really important to cover in the work session is,
Sure.
comparatively speaking, on a lot of these issues that have been brought up, things that, I hear from calls, I hear things, and then I do some research, and then I realize, okay, maybe we don't look like we got a good grade, but nobody's got a better grade. So nobody's, I don't think any of us are satisfied with where we are, but we do have to look at our reality against our peers and to have some perspective of where we really maybe need to work on and areas where perhaps we're performing better than others. So we look forward to that comparative
Absolutely.
analysis. If you
And what we do, just Chair, we have what we call very large district meetings, where directors from the very large districts do get together, and we do bounce those ideas off, and we kind of ask each other, hey, what are you doing to reduce that, or how are you working this? And we actually go visit different programs. Our last visit to Orange County was our ESTEAM program that they felt a couple of the districts wanted to duplicate because they found it very fascinating and how it helped the students. And so that is our focus. And we always, as directors, just bounce ideas off each other to try to figure out how we could all improve together because we're in it together and we're at that same goal, is to help our
Absolutely.
students and provide the best
and
support possible.
that is a huge benefit of that networking. If somebody's found a way of doing something better, then we need to imitate
Absolutely.
it. So thank you. All right. So with that, we are poised for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a motion? The motion by Member Colbert. Is there a second? Second by Member Lopez. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that was the real Member Lopez who made that second. Not the imposter. I forget what that show was. Okay, now let me recognize Anil Kumar, Managing Director of Cisco and SCD, to the microphone to say a few words. Thank you, sir. I'm so sorry. I got your speaker card and confused you with just a member of the public who had some concerns. Thrilled to have you with us.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, honorary board members. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. This is my first time, and hence the confusion with where to sit.
That's okay. You can sit wherever you want.
I'm honored to be here. I've truly enjoyed a good working relationship with Dr. Jenkins and her team. SED, as some of you may know, is essentially an acronym for the Sports and Entertainment District, which is happening in downtown Orlando in partnership with the city and a lot of community stakeholders. And my family and I are honored to essentially serve in that capacity of being investors and partners of another family office that essentially are partners in developing the district. And what we want to do is importantly ensure that that project continues to have a positive social impact for the community, the residents that live in District 5 and in the downtown Paramore area. Education is an important enabler for that, and recognizing that the SED project has committed significant time and capital towards working with the school district and specifically the technical college in specific realms around technology and skill sets that we think are required for the next generation of talent, which is essentially designing, building, and operating smart districts, everything from smart utilities to smart healthcare, smarter transportation. So there are definitely essentially 5-6 pillars. And we see that as the next generation of what smart communities and smart districts are all about. So we're honored to have that opportunity of hopefully collaborating with the school district in a way such that it's value accretive to the community and to the residents at large. And I think we have a small video to show you as well. Dr. Jenkins?
Thank you. Cue that video.
We're no stranger to prototyping the future. We turn ideas into magic in Orlando every day. We've cleared the way for game-changing innovations and are uniting transformative partnerships with the experience and passion to create the global smart city of tomorrow, right here, right now. Enabled by first-in-market, future-proofed infrastructure, the Sports and Edutainment District will be the catalyst for and the heart of downtown Orlando's smart city design. At the core of the Sports and Edutainment District is the Plaza, which is where the community will gather and become part of the biggest moments in entertainment, sports, and life. New development at the core will feature smartly designed Class A office space, tech-inspired residences, innovative retail and restaurants, and an upscale hotel with conference and event space to host major events and conventions, as well as live performances, e-gaming competitions, and private events. Smart city technology and shared solutions begins in the Sports and Edutainment District and will power our connected network of downtown neighborhoods, campuses, and state-of-the-art venues to deliver a new integrated paradigm in the downtown Orlando user experience. By fusing sports, entertainment, business, education, technology, and community, we will give rise to a new center of gravity in the region and an enhanced experience for every person it touches. Pioneering innovations and technologies spanning public safety, utilities, health and wellness, IoT, and transportation transcend infrastructure to become part of the magnetic attraction as we create customizable, repeatable, and shareable experiences for all. The Sports and Edutainment District is where the future lives. It's where locals and visitors come to work, play, and rally. Downtown Orlando is where tomorrow comes sooner because of today's powerful collaborations, and where we will expand beyond the world's vacation destination to also become the world's smart city inspiration.
Members of the board, I love that video, but more importantly, I love what it is bringing to our students at Orange Technical College, just up the road where that whole infrastructure will take place, clear under I-4 and beyond. That picture, if you saw a blow-up of it, it will just be mind-blowing. I am so excited for our students of Orange Technical College that will be a part of that in apprenticeships and internships and eventually jobs. This particular community will benefit from the SED and that partnership. So I want to thank Anil and all of his team that have worked tirelessly. We sort of went into a bit of a limbo period during COVID-19, but I am so excited to see this getting ready to take off with some significant effort and resources behind it, and so pleased for our young people, our students of Orange Technical College that will benefit, and our entire community, particularly the Paramore area. This community is going to benefit from this development. So thanks again to the SED and for including OCPS as a part, Madam Chair.
Awesome. Congratulations. No, thank you. Congratulations to us, and thank you. That was awesome. With that, we have approved the consent agenda. Member Felder?
I just wanted to say something after looking at the video.
Turn on your mic.
This is my first time, and this is a district where I am the board member for. So I certainly am very excited about the job opportunities that will be given to Orlando Technical, and then you have ACE, you have the school, the little ones. You're talking about role models. You're talking about opportunities. That's going to be so wonderful for those children to be a part of that and to see that, because when people feel good about where they live and where they go to school, they'll want to improve their lot. So I'm hoping that it will be provision and opportunity not only for just ACE, for Jones, a lot of the schools that are around that area or Orlando Technical School, that they can see and be a part of such an innovative project. Thank you so much for your creativity. I look forward to, seeing it and being a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to item 1701, approval of the name for 80HSW4, school opening in 21-22. I had to pause for a minute. We voted, right? Okay, yeah, for some reason I'm like, did we actually vote already? We did, thank you. Dr. Jenkins, you're recognized.
Thank you. We have a few school namings. Dr. Border will bring forth the first one, and all three actually are under Dr. Border. So let's proceed.
Thank you, Superintendent Jenkins. Good evening, Chair Jacobs, members of the board. I'm very excited tonight to go over some school namings with you. I'd be remiss if I didn't start by saying thank you to Dr. Swenson and his support team, who is here tonight, for their hard work in getting us to this point. And in accordance with School Board Policy FF, we are submitting 3 names that are a direct result of community involvement for consideration in the naming of High School 80-H-SW-4. The 3 names that have emerged as most suggested in alphabetical order are Lake Buena Vista. The name Lake Buena Vista represents a widely known nearby lake and municipality within our attendance zone. Sand Lake. The name Sand Lake represents another large body of water and road near the school property. Also appears on numerous businesses and properties throughout the attendance zone. And Vineland. The name Vineland represents a former unincorporated community adjacent to the school property and appears on several major roadways. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 members of the public that wish to speak to this school naming before we take up discussion and action. So let me call first on Stefani Schultz, followed by Robert Strong. Is Stephanie?
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
That's
Sorry
okay.
about that. Stefani has a nice flair to it too.
Yeah, well, she's a little bit more famous and rich
Yeah.
than I am, so.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, if you can give your name correctly for the record and address, and then 3 minutes for your comments, and
Yes.
thank you.
Stephanie Schultz, 9548 Castleford Point, Orlando 32836. I am the parent of 2 children that are currently zoned to attend the new Southwest Relief High School. My son is currently an 8th grader at Southwest, and he will be attending this high school as a freshman next year. In 2025, he will be part of the first 4-year graduating class of the school that I recommend be named Lake Buena Vista High School. Before I explain my rationale for picking this name, I'd like to take a moment to thank the board for their efforts to accelerate the completion of this much-needed relief high school. My family and my children's classmates are excited for the opportunity to begin new traditions at our new high school. My husband and I are both active members of OCPS as volunteers, and I personally spent 3 years on the PTA board at my daughter's elementary school. We look forward to helping Principal Swenson at our new high school. I offer this information to assure you I have not arrived at my naming recommendation arbitrarily, and I won't be limiting my involvement to the school just at this meeting. As you know, Lake Buena Vista is a name of some local significance. Like Dr. Phillips to the north and Celebration to the south, Lake Buena Vista is well known geographically. It is not a long forgotten area reference or a recently created hotspot. The area that our new school lies in has been known at Lake Buena Vista for the better part of 60 years, ever since Disney's development of the nearby area. Exit 68 off of I-4 is the Lake Buena Vista exit. Local area businesses share the Lake Buena Vista name and residential developments use the Lake Buena Vista reference also. In short, this area is Lake Buena Vista, and I believe that OCPS's new flagship school should be named in that context. There are, of course, other geographically based naming options, but they either lack originality in the OCPS system or lack any real geographic significance. The board has already named a nearby elementary school after the Sand Lake chain, and although there are several roads that incorporate Vineland, it's not a commonly used geographical reference. But people familiar with Orlando know where Lake Buena Vista is, and naming our school Lake Buena Vista High School provides a unique, local, and appropriate name for our students and our community. The Orange County School Board maintains a long tradition of naming schools based on significant geographical or local area references. Of the non-charter and non-vocational high schools in OCPS, over 85% are named after geographical areas. They share their names with the communities they represent: Wekiva, West Orange, Lake Nona, etc. I encourage this board to help our new high school continue in this great tradition and allow our school to represent our community with a name that is defined by the area we live and work, Lake Buena Vista High School. Again, I thank the board for its efforts to accelerate the construction of this high school. I look forward to the grand opening and supporting Principal Swenson at Lake Buena Vista High when it opens in the fall of 2021.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
so much for being here. Let's hear from Robert Strong.
Hello, Robert Strong, 8631 Bricksford Street. So I served with a few other residents on the area for the new high school naming committee, and I'm also live in Parkside, which is nearby the new high school. So I ask you that you also consider naming the new high school the Lake Buena Vista High School, and I'd like to share with you a few reasons to consider in your decision why this name would be the best choice. First, as we've already heard, location recognition. The city, Lake Buena Vista, is known throughout the country, perhaps beyond. The city of Lake Buena Vista is obviously related to Walt Disney World, which has a positive global brand recognition. Graduates of the new high school would benefit from this recognition. For example, college recruiters knowing about the school from its name, national competitions that our students would participate in. In addition, students applying for scholarships would benefit from admissions administrators recognizing the name of the school. When this name was first submitted by the community, I understand through Principal Swenson that the Disney Legal Department was contacted to see if there was any issue with using the city name, Lake Buena Vista, and was told no issue exists. Also, students that live in Lake Buena Vista would be attending this high school, according to the zoning map. And finally, the new high school is located within the Buena Vista Overlay District, which I've been told was put into legal form as an ordinance in 2001 when Chair Teresa Jacobs was the District 1 Commissioner at that time. The other alternatives, Sand Lake and Vineland, have local recognition, although they're less familiar than Lake Buena Vista globally. Name recognition is a valuable asset which can be leveraged for the new school. This is a unique opportunity to use this global name, Lake Buena Vista, to associate the new school with an area that is widely known and benefit our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion or discussion by Vice Chair Gould and
Thank you, and I really appreciate the great thought, and I heard some very robust conversations on the names of the school. I know there were a lot of submissions, and it got narrowed down to these three. But I think the majority of the community, as well as for the reasons that you heard here this evening, which I think are very compelling, I am in support of the name Lake Buena Vista and would like to present that as the name of our new high school that relieves Freedom and Dr. Phillips. And before I make that final motion, I want to make sure that my partner in this school is also in support of that. So Member Colbert, I'd love to hear from you.
Member Colbert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Member Gould. You guys know how excited I get about school namings. It's one of my favorite things that we get to do because it has a lasting legacy for our community. And it's so great that we concur. This was my favorite name brought forth by the community because that name, that identity is so important. When people ask, where is the new high school? And I tell them it's down on Darrell Carter Parkway. They go, where is that? where, especially if you're from, East Orange County or even downtown. But if I tell them it's in Lake Buena Vista, they know exactly where it is. And so because that name is so important to our community and the legacy that it will bring for our students, I concur, and I would like to second Member Gould's motion.
All right, Member Gould, why don't you make the motion?
So I move that the new name of, I have three of them, so hang on, let me make sure, 80, 80 becomes Lake Buena Vista High School.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Gould to name 80 HWSW4 to Buena Vista High School, and
And a second.
we have a second by Member Colbert. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Jenkins.
Dr. Border, next high school.
So before we go on, Dr. Jenkins, they're also ready, just FYI, they are combining Dr. Phillips Blue with Freedom Red, and they are going to be the Vipers, so congratulations. All right, so thank you, Superintendent Jenkins. Good evening again, Chair Jacobs, members of the board. I want to thank Principal Busey and her support team for all the great work they did in getting us here tonight. We are excited for the naming of our second new high school. And according to School Board Policy FF, we are submitting three names that again are a direct result of community involvement for consideration in the naming of High School 113-H-W-4. The three names that emerged as the most suggested in alphabetical order are Hamlin High School. Arthur George Hamlin was an attorney who became an authority on citrus culture and developed the Hamlin orange, which was produced on the land in our school's area. He is designated as a Great Floridian. Horizon High School. Horizon is a reference to the horizon of opportunities that the school will provide its students, and also a reflection of the Horizon West community where Site 113 is located. And finally, Horizon West High School. Site 113 is located in the Horizon West community. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we take action on this, Josh Howard is here with comments. Thank you. If you could give your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Josh Howard, 16047 Hampton Crossing Drive, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. Thank you again for this opportunity. I'm a father of 3 OCPS students, 2 at Water Spring Elementary, one of which will be moving to Site 65, we'll be talking about in a moment, and one at Bridgewater, who is in 8th grade and will be attending this new Site 113. While I've lived in Central Florida for over 20 years now, my family and I moved into the Horizon West planned area about 4 years ago, specifically for schools, because we wanted to be in the OCPS school district, and the plan that we saw for Horizon West, and to bring this community together in a unique new way. So 2020 came, and while I've had some unexpected free time this year, it has allowed me to get a little bit more involved in my community. So I take that as a very positive thing out of a tough year. With that, just this year, got my real estate license so that I could help my Horizon West community. I actually got my status of eligibility to teach business education, so that if I want to take that step, and just recently started substitute teaching within OCPS. Really appreciate what's going on in our community and with these schools, and glad to be a participant in that. With that being said, I've also found lots of time to attend many of the school board meetings, many of our site planning meetings, and rezoning meetings virtually, and I want to thank Chair Jacobs and the board and Pam and Principal Busey for being so transparent and allowing us as a community to participate and be heard even in these tough times. And I encourage that continue, as you'll hear from many of our residents of Horizon West, I'm sure. So in establishing this new high school, our goal really is we want to bring that Horizon West community together, and I think the best way to do that is through the name Horizon High School. And the big reasons I have for that, one, yes, we are Horizon West, but we already have a Horizon West Middle School, which, by the way, feeds into Windermere High School and will not feed into this new high school. Hamlin, great name, great person, but we also have a section, if you're not aware. Hamlin is our town center of Horizon West. This school actually sits south of that and not in the same village. So it only represents one part of the Horizon West community. But Horizon, just the alliteration of Horizon High, or as we like to say, Horizon Hawks, once our mascot is determined, just is such a wonderful sound, and it rolls off the tongue. It's a great thing to cheer for. The imagery and meaning behind Horizon, the apparent junction of earth and sky, the range of experience, something that might be attained, just leads to that feeling of what we want for our students and our community. And I think this Horizon High School truly has an opportunity to bring Horizon West together along with Windermere and West Orange, because all of these high schools serve that community, and we can come together as one without being in a silo of just Horizon West. We are Horizon High School. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Strong, you win the award tonight for Best Public Speaker. I was, right from the beginning, when you found a positive silver lining in this year, I was like, I want to commend you when you get done for finding gratitude. And then you went on and told us that you are substituting. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, he's my hero. In this tough year when many of our teachers are not able to be in the classroom. So I applaud you for that. And then you wrapped up your comments about the school and the name. So anyway, I just, hats off, you win the award. If I have the authority to, I don't know that the chair gets to do that, but it's the first time I've ever tried. But great job. And now, Vice Chair Gould, what are you going to do?
Well, you know, that picture was painted so beautifully, I don't think I even need to express why I also support this
Thank
name.
heavens.
And make a motion to name 113-H-W-4 to Horizon High School, and go Hawks.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a motion by the Vice Chair, and we have a second by Member Covert. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next up, 1703, Dr. Jenkins.
This is actually now for the middle school that will be housed at the high school, but we are naming the middle school separately now.
And they are the purple and orange Hawks, Horizon Hawks.
All right.
Thank you, Superintendent Jenkins. Good evening again, Chair Jacobs, members of the board. I want to thank again Principal Busey and her support team for all their hard work in bringing us to where we are tonight. It is very important to us that we ensure our middle schoolers have a strong identity at Horizon High. And in that vein, it's important that we want to name the middle school as part of providing them that identity. So in accordance with School Board Policy FF, we are submitting 3 names that again are the direct result of community involvement for consideration in the naming of our middle school, 65-M-W-4. The 3 names that surfaced as most suggested in alphabetical order are Hickory Nut Middle School. Site 65 is located in the Hickory Nut Village of Horizon West. Story Lee Middle School. Site 65 is located in the Story Grove community and adjacent to the Water Lee community. Story Lee is a combination of the two. And Water Spring Middle School. Site 65 is located adjacent to Water Spring Elementary School and part of the feeder pattern. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any public comments, so Vice Chair, floor is yours.
There. Dr. Border, could I ask you to come back to the mic for a second? On this one, I believe the majority were Water Spring, that they liked Water Spring the most. And I want to affirm that
Thank
was
you,
the case.
Board Member Gould. Yes, so in looking at the responses, there were 176 responses for the name, Site 65. And the Water Spring Middle School did have 37% of the vote, which was the most.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just confirm that. I know there was some discussion of some names, and there were a lot of names thrown in to this particular pot for review. And Water Spring did come up, and I think it is the most appropriate as well. I also liked Hickory Nut, but it doesn't really identify anything. And there's a lot of water around Horizon West, and there's a Water Spring community, and as well as the elementary school. So I am in favor of supporting what the majority of the community wanted, and I propose that Site 65-M-W-4 become Water Spring Middle School.
All right, we have a motion by the vice chair. Do we have a second? Second by Member Cobert. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All
Do we
right,
have
Dr. Border,
colors
you're
yet?
done.
Do we have colors?
Ah, you're not done. What are the colors?
We do not yet for the middle
Okay.
school, but that will be forthcoming next.
All right.
So, a point of privilege, I'm sorry, Chair, I should have said this before I went into the vote. It's very important, as Dr. Border said, the community really requested that since we are rezoning this middle school prior to their permanent home being ready, that they have their own identity, that they feel that they are part of a school, even though it's living and coexisting on that campus. So I thank you for your support of this evening in really helping to define the school for them. And they're working on their colors and mascot as well.
All righty. Very good. Well, let's move on to item 1704, which was pulled from the agenda, the legislative, which is the approval of the legislative agenda. And Member Gallo, and committee chair for our legislative committee, you had asked to pull this for discussion.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wanted to pull this to get input from the board. We were trying to, for those of you who are on the legislative committee call, understood that we were trying to be very intentional about the language that we put into our priorities so that it would support the funding measures for all of our teachers. And some of those teachers were left out in the last legislative session because they were focusing on new teachers, which left a very little pot of money for our more experienced long-term teachers. So we were trying to be intentional and grab the essence of what we wanted to say so that our community and our staff understood that we're fighting for all of our employees, not just our new teachers or experienced teachers, but our classified staff, that we're here to fight for all of them to have equal pay. So the language that came out of that meeting is in the priority, it's the fourth bullet down, and it says support accountability and funding measures that have an equal impact on employees in similar job classifications. I've been reading this for about a week now, and I've been trying to come up with something better than this, and have not been very successful, but my concern is over the word accountability. I feel like accountability has a negative connotation, and I think that teachers and classified and all of our employees are already held to a very high accountability standard, and I think that sends kind of the wrong message to Tallahassee. So I was hoping that we could see if anybody has a better word that we could use in lieu of accountability, or maybe we just strike out accountability and it would read support funding measures that have an equal impact on employees in similar job classifications. I just wanted to bring it before the board in case somebody had something more creative than that to add to this line.
Okay, Dr. Kester-Dental.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see that we also, I'm looking at the platform on the BoardDocs, and we do refer to the same accountability system above the priorities for all educational entities directly or indirectly receiving state tax dollars. So we already addressed the accountability in another bullet. So I think it would just make sense to just say support, cross out accountability, and just put support funding measures, since that's what we were trying to get to with the pre-K. Simple.
Thank you. All right, Vice Chair Gould.
I also am in support of that, and I sat with it for, I read it and reread it one morning and read it and reread it again, and I'm like, there's just something that doesn't, and it is the word accountability. So I'm in full support of that, because the point is that all ships should rise, not just some ships.
So, Member Gallo, my suspicion is if you offer that as a motion, it's going to pass. You want to give it a shot?
Yes, I'll be happy to, Madam Chair. So would like to move that we change the fourth bullet under priorities to read, support funding measures that have an equal impact on employees in similar job classifications.
And your motion also includes adopting the legislative platform with that change.
And adopting the
Okay.
legislative platform with that change.
Thank
yes,
you.
Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Second.
We have where'd the second come from? From the vice chair. So we have a motion by Member Gallo, Chair Committee, and we have a second from Vice Chair. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Very good. Thank you. It was a good catch and a good fix. Less is better, right? All right. Informational items. Dr. Jenkins, you're recognized.
You have the personnel agenda.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you. No, we do. We have 1705. And Ms. Enval?
Yes, I believe School Board Member Felder would like to make a statement for the record.
Thank you.
Pursuant to Section 112.3143 Florida statutes, I am abstaining from voting in my official capacity on item 5.01 due to a conflict of interest which would inure to my benefit. It contains the approval of my leave of absence as a teacher. It is important to candidly disclose this conflict and publicly state that I am abstaining from voting. I will also be filing Form 8B, which is a memorandum of voting conflict for county, municipal, and other local public officers with the Florida Commission on Ethics.
Thank you. So we have acknowledgement from Member Felder that she's abstaining. Do we have a motion for this item, 1705?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Member Byrd offered a motion of approval. Is there a second? Second by Member Lopez? Okay. Let's, let me get a second and we'll take up the question.
I'll second it.
Second from Member Castrodental, and we have a question. Member Lopez, please.
I just have a question for the legal counsel. I also have a leave of absence, remember?
I'm sorry, you what?
I also have a leave of absence.
Yes, but yours was on the one that was in October, and that's why you abstained in October. Yours is not on this one.
I can vote.
Yep. So this is as normal for both of you who are actually taking leaves of absences. You can't vote on your own item, so yours was done last time. Yep.
Okay, good question and clarification. Thank you for making sure. Absolutely. Now, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then let the motion show that all members of the board, except for Member Felder, and that's, I was just saying, let the record reflect that all members of the board, except for Member Felder, voted the affirmative. Member Felder has abstained due to a conflict of interest and will file the appropriate paperwork. Now, Dr. Jenkins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Very brief report regarding our spring plan that has to be submitted. I actually have to sign the assurances and submit our spring plan so that our launch ed at home may continue. And I assure you all of the requirements are quite simple. We are already doing those particular things, but let me just mention them for the record so you know that we'll be getting you the copy once our draft is ready. It is due by the 15th to Department of Education. We have to assure, number one, that all schools will remain open. That does not indicate that we have no ability to pivot should there be a COVID outbreak at a particular school, but our schools will remain open. We will continue to offer the full slate of services to schools. I like that word, slate, of services. Thirdly, we will guarantee, in case you didn't know, the state prefers a term that most people don't recognize, panoply of services. Member Castrodental and I had to research the right way to say that word. Assurance 3, we will continue progress monitoring and intervention. We're already doing that. We have to assure the Department of Education that we will continue to progress monitor. Fourthly, we have to continue offering the same flexibility to charter schools. Fifthly, we have to have an innovative learning modality that includes a plan for parents whose children are struggling, that they be provided a written notice that their child is not making adequate progress, and that they be required to sign off an acknowledgement if they insist on remaining in the digital learning program. They have to sign an acknowledgement verifying that they've received the information and intend to still remain in the innovative learning model that is required. Assurance 6, we have to pursue truancy and attendance as we are already doing. We've had some success in pursuing students that we believe were missing or not in regular attendance. And then finally, we have to continue our professional development for our teachers, particularly in the delivery of learning through digital means and intervention. I'd like to also note Wendy Dormal, president of CTA, submitted 3 ideas to include in our plan. Those were all useful to us as well and included. We will be getting copies to you all in the coming days before we submit it to the Department of Education. That is my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Enval? No report? Thank you. Do we have any committee reports? I should have asked during pre-agenda. I assume that we do not. Okay. We have no formal board meetings between now and the end of the year. We do have a meeting, work session next week, rural development, I believe. We will be having the ESE workshop. I think the goal was sometime in January. Okay. Are there any other policy issues that the board wishes to have on the agenda in the near future? If so, let us know now. Member Castrodano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is related to the last policy discussion that we had. This week, the City of Orlando voted to pilot a program with Aspire Health to send licensed mental health counselors and a caseworker to 911 calls in certain situations of attempted suicide or mentally ill, nonviolent calls, instead of sending a uniformed officer with a gun. So OCPS is not alone in looking for other ways to intervene which minimizes harm. I hope is that our district embraces the same stance as the city, and that we lead the state in our trauma-informed practices related to students in mental distress.
Thank you. All right. If there's no further business to come before the board, no further comments from board members, the meeting is now adjourned.